We all remember Life is Strange, right? It was Don't Nod's surprise hit that came out in 2015 that received incredibly positive reviews from damn near every gaming site on the internet. So whether or not that means the game was actually good is up to you, but if you want to know what I think, I thought it was okay. Yes, it was a very cringy teen angst fest filled to the brim with unlikable characters that you would wish would just fuck off and die, and sometimes they do.
Chloe! Look out! What the fuck?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
The game had an interesting mechanic. The main character, Max Caulfield, had the ability to rewind time to undo the actions of herself and others, which in some ways was a detriment to the supposed choice-based gameplay, when at a touch of a button you could just undo whatever choice you made because you didn't like the outcome. And at the end of your 5-episode CW drama, only one choice mattered in the end. However, I really liked Max. She was shy and naive, and she always seemed to have a good head on her shoulders, even at times when the writers made her say the dumbest shit.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra.
Her friendship with Chloe felt genuine, even though Chloe is one of the biggest cunts I've ever encountered while playing a video game. Other characters like Kate Marsh I genuinely felt sorry for and tried my best to make sure she was okay, which led to probably the most effective sequence in the game, when Max can't use her rewind power and Kate is about to jump off a building. The game's narrative was also pretty intriguing, balancing your run-of-the-mill, teen life, drama, liberal arts school problems with the disappearance of a girl and an impending storm that Max constantly has visions of throughout the game that threatens to destroy the town of Arcadia Bay. There was always something happening, and while not all of it landed, I was never really overly bored with my experience. And by the time the game ended, I sat back and went, that was fine. Much to my surprise, Don't Nod Entertainment announced a sequel to the game, which doesn't seem all that necessary. But I liked the first game enough and said to myself when the eventual sequel comes out that I would play it. Fast forward to summer of 2017. We finally get a release date for a new Life is Strange game. But it's not the sequel from Don't Nod. It's a prequel developed by Deck 9 and stars... oh, fuck me, Chloe Price. For some reason, Deck 9 decided to make a prequel exploring the relationship between Chloe and Rachel Amber, the girl that disappeared in the first game. This kind of caught everyone by surprise, seeing as most people weren't expecting more Life is Strange until at least 2018. But then Deck 9 bursts in through the wall like a drunken Kool-Aid man, plops this fucking mess into our laps, and before we can even say, what the fuck, he shushes us before burping obnoxiously in our faces and whispering, you're welcome, before tripping on his way out the door. If you can't tell by the tone of my voice and my exaggerated explanation as to how I feel this game came to be, or maybe the title gave it away, I don't like this game. Anyway, as per usual, let's discuss some things I like before I go into a full fucking rant. The graphics this time around are a bit better. While I never thought Life is Strange was an ugly game, I always thought the character models looked a bit strange. Their eyes in particular seemed so lifeless and people moved around like fucking robots. Thankfully this time around there's quite a bit more detail in the characters. They look and move a bit more like people this time. I always liked the music in Life is Strange and it's no different here. The soundtrack is very nice to listen to and the opening band Firewalk was fucking awesome. Something that shocked me was how Chloe was slightly more likable this time around. I attribute much of that to us being able to play as her so she's not acting like a bumbling, insufferable fuckwit the entire game. The D&D segment in episode 1 was fun. Playing episode 2 was amusing with probably the greatest moment in Nathan Prescott's pathetic existence.
He's crying!
Fetch us in fuel, and be quick. So, slave, hence.
Fuck you.
Right back at you, you fucking psychopath. Unfortunately, that's about it. Alright, it's time for some chaos. I'm gonna start with the voice acting. It's horrible. Due to the SAG-AFTRA, which is a voice actor strike, much of the original cast didn't return to reprise their roles. And the people they did get have little to no experience acting or just voice acting. Everyone comes across as really bland with this ho-hum tone in their voices. I don't think I liked a single performance. Ashley Birch played Chloe in the first game, and while I hated the character, her performance was one of the best in the game. But this time around, Chloe is played by Rihanna DeVries, and I'm sorry if I pronounce her name wrong, but to be honest, I don't fucking care. And she is awful. She's so emotionless and stiff in almost all of her scenes, which unfortunately is the entire fucking game. The junkyard scene, for example, was supposed to be this huge emotional moment. The animation and the music come together beautifully, and we're expecting this intense performance, but instead we get this bored and lifeless delivery.
I've never understood your hard-on for cameras, Max. You took 1,000,000 pictures of us, and not one of them showed that you were gonna leave when I needed you most. Fuck cameras.
This, in conjunction with the awful dialogue and plot, make for an all-around miserable time in a game that's 95% talking to other people and making choices, but we'll get more into the plot later. Instead of Max Caulfield's rewind power, Chloe has the ability to talk back to certain characters, which is instantly a less interesting mechanic as opposed to the last game, and mostly acts as a Conor McGregor simulator.
Don't you remember what it's like to be a teenager? I just want to see the band.
I thought we went over this. Isn't it past your bedtime?
You'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you'll do nothing. Get the fuck out of here!
That being said, the mechanic does work well and can be interesting at times. The only problem is it's hardly ever utilized and is merely an optional ability. Outside of the introductory sequence, I used the backtalk ability maybe twice, maybe 3 times, passing one and failing another one, which infuriates me more because failing had no consequence. I was able to proceed through the encounter as if I had never even used the backtalk ability at all. On top of that, Chloe is already a rather annoying character to deal with, so having to play as her, I tried my best to avoid confrontation so I wouldn't have to reacquaint my forehead with my desk every time Chloe opens her fucking mouth. Now let's get into the plot. Aside from being a completely unnecessary prequel to introduce us to a character that's already dead in the first game, what the fuck is the point in this game's existence? What happens? Nothing! I guess you could say the main storyline for the game is Rachel wanting to meet a mysterious woman who turns out to be her biological mother, which in itself wasn't a very interesting development, but the entire game is padded with characters doing and saying nothing. Anything that resembles development for established characters gets thrown out the fucking window because we already know how they end up and what they act like in the first game. Rachel is already dead in the first game, so why should we care about anything that happens to her? There's this part where she gets stabbed by this crazy drug dealer and the game makes it out to be like this huge deal. But we know she doesn't die, so any emotional impact just fizzles out. The game doesn't even do a good job at establishing a friendship or a forced romance, because in episode 1, they know each other for all of 5 fucking minutes, and they've already decided that they're ride or die BFFs. And I'm sitting here like, bitch, I hardly know you. David is actually really likable in this game as he tries to be a more understanding father figure for Chloe, which I wanted to appreciate, but we know how volatile their relationship is in the first game. Your choices do not matter at all. I know that's not a shock to say about these episodic, choice-based games, but it's so much more apparent in this game. I also think some of the choices are outright broken, because in episode 1, I stole money from the t-shirt guy at the concert and paid off Frank, who was the dealer in the first game. Second episode comes around, and while looking into Frank's ledger, we see Chloe's name is crossed out, and yet at the end of the episode it says I didn't pay off my debt to Frank. What? Was there something else I had to do? There's also this tone I got in the first episode where I thought they were moving in a direction that implies Rachel is using Chloe as a way to get out of Arcadia Bay. But this never gets acknowledged until episode 3 when r/nice guy Elliot comes in to cap off what a fucking cringe machine he is. But since he's such a fucking nutcase, it's easy to just wave off what he says, regardless of a legitimately interesting component to the Rachel character that they could have and should have explored. To make things worse, they did the exact fucking thing they did wrong in the first game. None of your choices matter except for one at the very end of the game. The end of the game is so poorly delivered, I originally thought it was just a dream sequence. But upon realizing that this was, in fact, the end of the game, I just threw my hands up. I promptly ceased to give any more fucks about whatever story this game was attempting to tell. After sitting through one more cutscene, the game ends completely with Rachel's phone in a dark room, ringing continuously as the sounds of a camera snapping echoes in the background. It was dark and effective. Until you get smacked in the face with a screen that says, people who pre-ordered the game get a bonus episode. Fuck that shit. Life is Strange Beyond the Storm is not the worst game I ever played. It's definitely a disappointing and lazy addition to a game that, despite its flaws, I actually kind of liked. The plot moves at a snail's pace, and I put plot in quotations. And even when things happen, there's no reason to give a single flying fuck about anything. The choices are meaningless, the voice acting is garbage, and the game as a whole just feels unnecessary. Hopefully Don't Nod develops a true sequel to the first game and avoids the colossal mistakes this game made. And if not, well, I hope you're all looking forward to My Problem with Life is Strange Season 2. Also, Sammy goes down as the best character in Life is Strange history for this moment alone.
And, what do I want to keep hidden?
That you are lonely and afraid. It's okay not to be okay, Chloe Price.
Fuck, man.